Hey guys, Logan Johnson here. Welcome back to my channel. As you guys know, this past weekend, YUBEL did win the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, and today I'm going to show you guys how to beat that deck. I'm going to go over how I approach using my hand traps and using my board breakers in combination and by themselves in order to give yourself the highest chance to actually win going second against this very scary combo deck that YUBEL is. Let's get right into that. When preparing for a matchup going second, you need to create a game plan. Against a combo deck like YUBEL, your game plan should really only be one of two things. Either cut them off early, prevent them from making any sort of board, or learn the choke points and figure out where you can interact to prevent certain aspects of their board. And how you do this is very simple. If the rest of your hand with the hand trap is not very strong, let's say you have a hand of multiple normal summons, or you have multiple cards repeating, you have a very weak hand, you need to use your hand trap early. You need to use your Ash Blossom on their Lotus. You need to use your Ash Blossom on their Fiendsmith package. You need to use your Ash Blossom basically on the first thing they do. Especially Nightmare Throne. Nightmare Throne is one that you absolutely have to Ash like every single time, pretty much regardless of your hand, because this card immediately threatens Phantom of YUBEL. In terms of effect negation, you need to be using your effect negation on cards like Spirit of YUBEL and Dark Beckoning Beast. In terms of Ghost Ogre, if you're trying to stop them completely, you need to be using this card on Opening of the Spirit Gates to summon back Lotus, or you need to be using this card on Nightmare Pain after they Lotus. Other hand traps like Bestials, Nibiru, DD Crow, and Droll, none of these are guaranteed to stop them. The reason YUBEL is one of the best decks in the meta is because its ability to play through one hand trap is unparalleled to anything else in the meta. If you hand trap them early and try to cut them off of, like, say, a Samsara D Lotus, an Engraver, whatever it may be, the deck has access to all these cards in different forms, such as, Air Leader, Yama, Muckracker. They're able to recycle all parts of their combo and get to it, as well as just have the cards in hand to extend and replace whatever you stopped. So against YUBEL, using one hand trap early, while it might give you a small chance to cut them off completely and end their turn, it is definitely a gamble, and it's definitely variance whether or not they're going to pass on nothing or if they're just going to full board you. So the times where you're going to want to try to cut them off early is going to depend on your hand. If you look at your hand and you have one hand trap and the rest of your hand might be something like, multiple normal summons, duplicate copies of a card, a weaker hand, those are going to be the circumstances where you're going to need to take the chance, try to variance them out of the game, and hand trap them early. However, when you have a hand that has, let's say, 2 hand traps, 3 hand traps, or even more interesting, 1 hand trap plus a board breaker, those are going to be the games where it's going to be more difficult, and you're going to have to make a very difficult decision on how to hand trap them. And if you're able to play through their board using your hand trap and using your board breaker, or using your 2 hand traps in combination, and I'm going to show you kind of how to determine how to use those 2 cards when you have them in combination. If you're looking to pair 2 specific hand traps together, the best pairing is always going to be Nib plus Valor or Imperm. This is kind of just the age-old strategy. You want to be holding your negation until the very end, basically, and you want to Valor Imperm their Phantom and then Nib, and that is going to clear up the most possible things on their board as you physically can with those 2 cards. The only time that this really gets punished is if they're playing a list that plays like triple Phantom of YUBEL and they put up 2 Phantoms to very specifically play around this combo. That's going to be a circumstance that does not happen that much. So from my experience, and my advice to you would be, if you have Nib plus Valor or Nib plus Imperm, you want to hold that until pretty much the very end when you can hit the Phantom and then Nib them afterwards. That's going to clear up the most you can. They're still going to have some interruptions. They're still going to be able to play through that a little bit. They may end on a Phantom. They may end on like an Escape with a Rage, but generally they're 2-3 card combos. This is going to clear up the most. It's just very important that you hit them before they summon Verrugus. As soon as they start threatening the second negation, that's when you need to make sure to hit them with the double hand trap in that situation. A combination of 2 effect negations like these 3 cards right here, I'm going to be looking at trying to, number 1, stop their Yama, number 2, stop their sequence, or vice versa, depending how they do their play. I'm not really going to try to cut them off early because there's too many extenders that punish you and that will lead to a full board where if you stop a sequence or you stop a Yama, no matter what, you're going to be minimizing the board. And if you're able to stop both, you're going to reduce the board by a lot. The only problem here is every single monster hand trap has a problem with Phantom of YUBEL. So if they have a Phantom of YUBEL and you have, say, Valor Imperm, your best chance here is to try to Valor them on one of those choke points, and they're going to negate with Phantom, and then you're going to use Imperm on the second choke point, which, depending on how they sequence it, it'll either be Yama or Sequence, which will be the 2 choke points that you want to hit. And some of their combos, if they only play 2 Phantom, they're going to use a Phantom to link it off. They're going to have a Phantom on their field, and when you Valor them, they might have to negate that Valor with Phantom. So if they only play 2 Phantom, a lot of the time they will not be able to end on a Phantom, and your Imperm or your second Valor, your Mourner or whatever, will be able to cut off the Yama or the Sequence to reduce their end board, and hopefully your hand will be able to play through that with Powerful Engine or in combination with the Board Breaker. On the topic of board breakers, to beat YUBEL, you really need a combination of 2 very powerful board breakers to have a good chance against them. And realistically, it needs to be one of these 3 on the right here: Dark Ruler, Spear Mode, Super Poly, plus a combination of one of these over here, or another board breaker that I might not have listed here. It really can't be 2 low power board breakers, such as like a Forbidden Chalice or an Enemy Controller, or even an Infinite Impermanence or a Cosmic. You really need one of these super strong power breakers plus another good mid-range breaker, or a combination of 2 of these over here, to have a very good chance. And that's why I believe that board breakers are not the way to defeat YUBEL. However, I do believe that pairing board breakers with hand traps is actually better now than it has been in previous formats, because if you know the choke points of YUBEL and you know that if you stop a sequence, they're not going to get to Desiree the majority of the time, and you're able to Dark Ruler them, that's a very good pair right there. If you're able to Imperm on their Yama and they're not able to get to escape, and then maybe you're able to Super Poly their board away, or you're able to Metal Tronus them away, or you're able to Talents them away, force them to end on Caesar and Talents take it, or force them to end on Caesar and Change Your Heart take it, that is a very good board pair right there, board breaker plus hand trap pair right there. So if you're building your deck, I don't think it's necessarily bad to include cards like Dark Ruler, Super Poly, Talents, Metal Tronus, Eclipse. However, I do believe you do need hand traps against the YUBEL deck to give yourself a chance to prevent them from getting to their Omni Negates. And then you can pair that one hand trap with a powerful board breaker, and then pair that with your engine to try to break through their board. That, however, sounds very difficult, and that is one of the reasons YUBEL is so powerful right now, is you have to draw pretty much a custom hand in order to beat their 2 to 3 combo starter hands. When pairing non-engine against YUBEL, you need to determine what your hand is able to play through. For example, let's say your hand consists of Imperm and Dark Ruler No More. Well, the only thing that's going to threaten Dark Ruler No More is a Desiree paired with a trap card that's chainable. So if we're looking to stop Desiree, the number one thing that we're going to want to hold our Imperm for is most likely going to be the Fiendsmith Sequence. Fiendsmith Sequence is going to be their number one way to get to Desiree. Without Lacrima in the format, the Fiendsmith package is a little bit worse now. It is a little bit more difficult to get bodies on the board to banish from your graveyard to activate Tract. So when they use Sequence and you're able to Imperm that, that's going to be the best choke point generally to stop Desiree. The only worry here is that if they already have the Sharvara in hand from Yama, your next best bet is going to be actually just hitting the Yama. Hitting Yama in their combo is going to cut off a lot. It's generally going to cut off Varudris because they're not going to be able to go Sharvara, pop Spirit, and then go Yama effect in the graveyard to summon back and get the 2 10s on board. It's also going to cut off the Escape from the Unchained. So if you're looking to minimize their board the most with one hand trap, generally Imperm on Yama is what I like to do. This is very good to pair with cards like, let's say, Triple Tactics Talent, let's say Metal Tronus. Anytime your hand can beat like the Varudris, or sorry, not the Varudris, the Phantom and Caesar type boards, or, you know, maybe Phantom Rage type boards, that is when you're going to want to Imperm the Yama. If you're looking to end their turn and cut them off with 2 hand traps, generally what you want to do is cut them off from the YUBEL package completely. And the way you do that is by basically preventing them from summoning back from the graveyard either their Spirit or their Lotus. And the easiest way you can do this is with cards like Ghost Ogre and cards like Bestials and cards like DD Crow. For example, let's say they start a combo with like Dark Beckoning Beast, and they're going to eventually go Air Leader, and they're going to dump Samsara D Lotus. Their next line of action is going to be opening the Spirit Gates, discard and try to summon back Lotus. Right there, if you have a combination of, let's say, Ogre and a Bestial or Ogre and a Crow, very good choke point here is to simply Ogre the opening of the Spirit Gates. And from there, they are going to have to either commit another card from their hand to try to get into a Mudcracker, or what they're going to have to do is try to get into a Yama and then try to pop their field and try to summon it back. In which case, both of those scenarios, you have a Bestial or you have a DD Crow to answer their way to recur their Lotus or recur their Spirit. Some hand traps that I believe are very good against YUBEL to draw by themselves without even anything to pair with them are Phantasme, Chummy, and Droll. The reason I believe these are very powerful is because, number one, these give you a chance to variance your opponent. And what I mean by that is with one card, you're able to give yourself a chance to stop their board. And the reason I say that is because Phantasme is going to give you 2 new cards, which could be 2 hand traps, 2 board breakers, a board breaker, a hand trap. And it's also going to apply pressure on the field with the form of a monster and a targeting protection. Chummy, similar thing. Chummy is usually going to give you 2, maybe 3 draws. This is going to give you a chance to draw into multiple hand traps. So drawing one of these by themselves gives you a chance to interact with their board more often and more efficiently than, say, drawing one effect Veiler would. Droll, on the other hand, this is going to be one that's a high risk, high reward card. It's going to be a card that generally is going to minimize their board a little bit, or it's going to completely stop them. In the circumstances where this card completely stops them, it's completely broken. They're really going to end on basically nothing. Whereas a single hand trap, like we went over, like Veiler Imperm and stuff, a lot of the times they're still going to put up like a Rage, and they're going to put up a Phantom with a trap card. Droll is going to give you that opportunity to actually end their turn completely with only one card. And at worst, it's generally going to cut off a small part of their end board. So if you're looking to play a deck that has like a combination of board breakers and hand traps, I think Chummy, Phantasme, Droll, and Imperm paired with board breakers is very good in combination. And that is something that I would recommend doing if you're looking for that type of strategy. Applying pressure to the board is very, very important against YUBEL, and I think it's one of the most crucial ways to defeat this deck. That's why I believe cards like Phantasme were main decked at the World Championship, and cards like Bestials are very, very powerful because not only are they potentially cutting off a small portion of their combo, they're putting a monster on your field which can turn into an SP, or it can negate targeting like Rage or their trap card, or a Jerusalem, one Jerusalem hitting the board at the end phase, like hitting their Yama, that can turn off their good interaction with their trap card to be able to revive the Rage, or it can force the Phantom there, and then if you do that at end phase, they're not able to remake the Phantom because it's end phase. And then just having the bodies on the field in order to make like an early SP to try to banish the Rage. Lastly, I do want to say, if you find yourself playing against this deck, practicing against this deck a lot, and you are opening 2 hand traps and they're comboing through it, I really don't want you to feel bad about that. I do think that is just the strength of YUBEL. This deck is so powerful going first, and in a good player's hand, this deck is disgusting. It's one of the best decks I think I've ever seen played through hand traps. I've seen this deck literally full board through 3 or 4 hand traps, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that, and that's just Yu-Gi-Oh! That is Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Unfortunately, sometimes you're just going to lose even when you have powerful hands, even when you think that they shouldn't be able to play, you're just going to lose. You just have to accept that, and you have to give yourself the best chance to win. And hopefully throughout this video, I've given you the best chance to win to increase your odds of defeating this deck going second, and create a more favorable matchup for your deck. Hey guys, if you made it to this part of the video, I just want to give a big thank you. Make sure to comment, subscribe, and follow my socials down below. They'll be linked in the description. And thank you for watching. Peace out.